Hello, welcome back to another episode of Somewhere Between a film and TV podcast. We are your hosts. I am Daniel Parra.
And I'm Erwin Trejo.
And number one, thank you so much for listening and watching. Number two, what are they going to do?
Take a poop.
Okay.
And number two.
Oh, yeah. And then do what?
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Please do, and work on your digestive stuff if you need to.
Eat lots of fiber.
Kombucha helps as well for the special occasions. So... What are we reviewing, Erwin?
Anora.
It's award season, guys. It's our first time ever covering, like...
It's award season?
Yeah, award season? Like Oscar stuff, right? So, everything we review has full spoilers, no matter what it is. And I do think that this movie has, like, some thematic stuff to get into and talk about that we'll fully get into. But before we talk about what this movie's about, I gotta ask Erwin a question. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or are you somewhere between?
I loved it.
Yeah, I loved this movie a lot as well. I was kind of floored by it. I was complaining.
You sitting on a chair?
Right at the moment, yeah.
No,
I was floored, like Project, by it. And again, everything.
Tangerine.
We'll unravel this just like you would a tangerine, right? So,
okay,
not bad. What'd you like about this so much?
The movie itself?
The movie itself, and what was it
started
about?
And it ended.
What was Anora about, and what did you love about it?
So Nora is about a stripper.
And sex worker, both of those things.
Okay. A sex worker. I guess she was.
Both, right?
Oh, yeah. She was both.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's about the stripper, I would just say, because I think that was like her main profession.
Yeah.
And meets this guy at the strip club, and she basically develops feelings for this guy, I would say, and the guy develops feelings for her, and their relationship just skyrockets into marriage in the span of like a month, like less than a month.
The way the story was told, I assumed it was a few weeks, gathering on maybe a month, because they said
at least 2 weeks.
Yeah.
For one aspect, but I'm pretty sure it was like a month.
Yeah, because the passage of time here isn't fully clarified, but you know that it's short, essentially.
And then eventually, I guess, knowing that the guy is rich and the family is famous and rich.
Right.
I'm guessing the family of the guy didn't like the fact that he married a prostitute. Right. Or a stripper or whatever it may be. And so... Yeah, basically it was mostly that. And just the guy running away from his problems.
And then it essentially leads to...
a Tom and Jerry.
Yeah. It gets... I don't want to call it cartoony. It gets sort of like... I read the description, it says screwball comedy, and I thought in the middle of it that it felt like a movie that could have existed in the 80s as well.
Yes.
That's kind of like the vibe I was getting from it.
Yeah, there were many shots, though, in this movie where it just felt cartoonish.
Yeah. That's because, well, a prime example would be for me probably the one where kind of like that where they're in the candy shop and and then right after there's this scene where I think it's funny because it shows all the characters in different moods, and this one, he's one of my favorite actors in the movie. I'll look him up in a second, but his name was Igor in the movie, and it's just him like tossing this bat over and over while these other characters are like going through it, and then he's just like so quiet throughout the majority of it.
That's true.
But outside of that, I do want to talk about the standout thing here, probably going to be at the top of your Oscar actress predictions, I'd have to assume, is Mikey Madison.
Yes.
What did you think of her in this?
She did a great job. I mean, from all the movies and I guess shows that she's been into, she's done a lot of minor things. And I guess this is one of the first movies that she's done where it's just she's like the main lead
She's
actress.
Definitely the headliner. It's never been that way before. Last was Scream 5 and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That was like an
ensemble cast.
Yeah, and she's not... I mean, I don't want to spoil that movie. It's amazing if you haven't seen it. But she has a lot to do in it. And she's great in the movie as well. And Sean Baker was explaining in our at the beginning of Alamo Drafthouse's thing that she has these eyes, which is true. She like has this ability to capture these kind of like the crazy eyes that people say, like in How I Met Your Mother, for example, like that.
Yeah, and she has to be. What is it? If she's this hot, or like no, it's like she's this crazy, she has to be this hot or something.
Oh right,
Yeah,
that's I
but
forget.
if she's
like
this
the
crazy,
scale.
then
Yeah.
I mean she's this hot.
But her performance in this is absolutely incredible. I think it asks so much. It's a navigation between being funny, and I read that a fair amount of it was improvised as well, which I didn't know, which makes sense considering the way they. Not a lot of it, but some of the jokes were, and you can tell based off of their dialogue exchanges.
Yes.
I thought that was written, but I mean that's just good writing in terms of authenticity. And
it takes place in New York.
It does.
Yes.
Specifically asking you though, because this is a hard character to pull off, right? There are certain things about her that could be considered, I don't want to say unlikable, but I told you that I think that Sean Baker, based off of his previous work as well, it's a really tricky balance of trying to navigate this sort of elegance of someone that could be on paper so unlikable and giving an actual empathy or an actual, like, you care about this person and what they feel. How did you feel about what she has to do and her character herself in this?
I mean, I think she did a great job just showcasing a lot of range for her character, because her character goes through a lot in the span of a month.
Yeah.
And whether or not, like, you yourself feel that she, deserved it or not.
Yeah.
She did a great job just portraying a character who would feel those emotions throughout.
Yeah. And there's so much, we'll talk about the ending when we get to it, but there's so much here.
I think
to
also just like the environment of that whole movie itself. Because even with like the Florida project, you felt the environment throughout the movie.
No.
And I think he did a great job too here, showcasing the environment as well.
I know it's a cliche as well to say this, that, oh, the setting is a character, but in the case here it is. I feel like, as well as in the Florida project, the project area, the whole Disney World thing, that they're so close yet so far away from what this girl's perception of paradise or like the place to be is, like the most magical place in the world. And here it's kind of a similar chasing a fantasy.
Yeah.
And we as an audience, I think it's interesting seeing a main character that we're similar in age to, because we as people know that
we the
people know that, at least because they said she's what, 23
in the movie. Yes.
Yeah. He says this thing that kind of lets you in on this character's mindset early on, where he says, oh, you act like you're 25, and she kind of looks at him sort of funny, like, what does that actually mean to you? That everybody at this stage in life is sort of different maturity levels. Sometimes we talk to people and it's like, this person's perception of reality is totally different.
This person has to be 21 and they're like 32.
Yeah.
And it's like, grow up.
So, like, if we talk about Mikey Madison's performance in this, I'm going to ask you what you think of this character. Is also tricky, but I'm going to look up the actor's name while you explain to me Vanya. And
who's Vanya?
Ivan.
Oh,
and tell me
Ivan's character?
Yeah.
So, I guess because we also talked about it too, where Ivan plays this character where it's false confidence and utilizing a lot of his own environment to showcase, like, look, this is my life. This is how much fun I would have, and that involves partying, drugs, a lot of other sex stuff as well.
Yeah.
And just utilizing that as his, bread and butter of showcasing, like, this is who I am. This is how I want to live my life.
Yeah.
This is how his life is. And eventually, like, that takes a, I would say a toll on, like, not just him, but also on her as well.
I think a lot of his actions are, obviously so selfish.
Yes.
And they're like, some husband you have, he just abandoned you.
Yes.
And then
whenever they get to that aspect too.
Yeah. No, there are these things in this movie that it's asking you to, I don't know necessarily if it's not that we can relate, it's not anything like that, but it's asking you, like Roger Ebert used to call things or movies empathy machines, for you to fully understand and get on these people's sides to depict their stories as well. It's why I said that Sean Baker also has this eye for authenticity, where he cast actual Russian people in this and actual Armenian people and people probably from New York and like random TikTok stars as well. Yeah. Probably to add that genuine sense of New York, because so often, I'm going to shit talk Friends for a second, but so often you see
guys, I love Friends.
The only reason I'm bringing that up is I saw it playing at the gym this morning, and then I was like, oh yeah, I forget
the show?
Yeah, they depict New York so inauthentically in that.
I wouldn't know. I've never been to New York, so
I have only a few times, but I'm not the authority on on New York.
You don't wear construction boots?
Oh, Tim's. I know someone that does, but no, not me.
Yeah.
And there's just a genuine with the dialogue, how they all overlap talking to each other, this rapid fire. Because you said it reminded you of Uncut Gems before we started, and I'll ask you why in a second. But for me, I do agree with that. It reminded me of, I love tension and anxiety causing conversations in every movie and show. Essentially, The Bear is incredible at that. So is Uncut Gems. All of these things where it's rampant talking over each other over and over.
Yeah, you do that with me all the time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. But okay, so Vanya's name is Mark Eidelstein or Eidelstein.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a hot dog name.
Yeah. So I have to agree with you though on a lot of his actions in this, and I think that. So you said something. We'll get into if we have any negatives in a bit, but for me, when this movie first starts off, I love the opening shots, and I love how it really breaks down Anora's life. Like that is,
like that's her pattern.
That's her rhythm, and you can tell based off of her facial expressions, based off of that music, the song that was playing at the beginning. I was like, I gotta Shazam this, or like I gotta look this up whenever I.
When you see someone about to Shazam a song that you're trying to gatekeep,
yeah, you're like, get out of my car. They're like, what song is this? Like, yeah, well, you would like to know, wouldn't you?
Oh, dude, I love gatekeeping. It's my favorite thing.
I don't like gatekeeping. I like to share and then say, hey,
That's why I gatekeep, guys.
He hates when I do that too. But it's this ideal situation for her at the moment.
I put him on.
And you just know that that's like the rhythm and the pattern.
Yes.
And then whenever he's introduced, Ivan or Vanya, whatever you want to call him, that he is the escape. They kept describing this in the trailers as a Cinderella story, which in a sense is true. Yes. But in the modern age, or some people say it has Pretty Woman-esque vibes. I think that's just partially for marketing, but you can get the sense of it.
Yes.
It has some similarities. And it's that idea of being told, like being sold a fantasy.
Yes.
And so many of the...
It's also like drugs.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, because like she's trying to escape from reality.
Yeah.
And him being that, fantasy of like another escape of reality.
That life is perfect for her for however long this amount of time is. And you can see a little bit, because you said in the montages, which I really like. Yeah. You can see a little bit of the crack, like whenever he's playing video games, and like the Mikey Madison is so great at facial expression in this, and being able to indicate how some things are either affecting her or she's either putting it off and just wants to buy into what's going on for her just to like keep up the facade of perfection. Yes. And so much of it is just like, oh yeah, at 23, I wouldn't say you and I have this, but a lot of people our age, that's the fantasy that they want to live in. That's where they want to be in life right now. That's their priority. It's indulging in money or going to Vegas spur of the moment. And I don't know if that's what you got out of it. I can ask you, like, what did you feel about the beginning portions of this movie as well?
Well, I do agree with the whole montage or just the beginning of like showcasing her environment and just learning her day-to-day basis. Yeah. And then whenever the montages would start happening with Ivan, that it just happened so fast, similar to how the relationship happened and developed so fast as well. Right. But to me too, that some of those moments felt slow, or it was intentionally slow. Yeah. To showcase how Ivan is, the character is, and then also to showcase Anora's Annie, yeah. I was gonna ask you, like, what do you think the point was too? Whenever they kept saying, like, she's like, my name is Annie, and then he goes, I like your name, Anora.
I think a lot of this movie has to do with identity.
Or like maturity, maybe,
and maturity as well. I think that so many people complain about coming of age movies need to be made for 20-year-olds as well, and this I think fits into that. I think that this is because a lot of people say, you're still growing up in your 20s as well, and I feel like they finally made a movie where it's this. And I think she has an agency for her like self in terms of who she is as a person. She's very tough in this, and she obviously can make up her own mind, but then we'll talk about the ending where that facade finally cracks a bit and she breaks down, which I love the ending. And I think that the name, the identity of that has a lot to do with whether it be maturity or growing into yourself as well, and just not fully acknowledging maybe reality of the situation. I think it's just supposed to be a parallel between, it's just one of those things where there's multiple dialogue asides where sometimes people say stuff in the background where you're just like, it's either funny or it means something, but it can also just be taken in passing as well. Did you get anything out of that either? Her name.
Oh, her name? No, I mean, I think that you explained it perfectly well, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess anytime her being just said Annie, it just showcased how much, like, trying to hold on to, like, the past and, like, what she wanted in, like, that present.
Well, did you notice that they switch between Ivan and Vanya a lot as well? Like, what do you think the reasoning is for that? Because
Ivan and Vanya?
Yeah, because that's Ivan's Russian name is Vanya.
I think it's because of, like, the language barrier.
Yeah.
I would think.
Well, I also think it ends up leading into how he keeps saying, "Oh, your Russian's so good," and then the mom at the end says that thing about like your Russian is embarrassing. I mean, to be fair, I don't know. I don't know. Like, but anytime she spoke it, I was like, I mean, sounds fine to me.
Sounds Russian to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. A lot of it. I don't know. I think a lot of like the story itself was very impactful from the beginning and the very end too, just showcasing how Anora really is as a character. And mostly in the middle is where I had a lot of fun with the movie, with the whole montage. Or that's not montage, but just them trying to find Ivan after realizing.
I agree with you in the sense that, do you feel this movie doesn't have, it felt like very split into two.
Yes.
And the first half is the illusion, it's the allure, it's the getting married, it's the getting to know.
I think, but that part for me felt weaker than the other two. Or like the other part.
The other half
of the movie. Just because it happened so fast and I just didn't... To me, I didn't really buy their relationship as much.
Yeah.
The way that they kept portraying it. And just I couldn't buy into it. And to me, it was so hard for me to sense any type of like human like connection that Anora had with Ivan. It just felt so... I think because she looked so enamored with like the life that was shown. Yeah. Like the fantasy itself. More so than her being enamored with Ivan, that I didn't get that connection.
Here's where I'm going to argue with you a little bit. I think you're supposed to feel that way. I think this movie's about maturing, like I said, in your 20s. I think it's also about mistaking your priorities and what you think a person is actually like and what they're putting themselves out to be. It's one of those things where, and there's a line I found devastating whenever I thought about it, not when it was said, but whenever I was leaving the theater and I was driving home and coming here, it was this line where I kept thinking about it. It's in the third act where he says, "Thank you for my last time in America." And it was just one of those things where I was like, that guy is such a dick.
Asshole.
Yeah. And because that was her entire life. And he sold this fantasy of this is going to be what your life is for the rest of it. Because I mean, I'm not going to say that this character is as immature as Ivan is the entire time, because that's just not true.
No, not at all.
I'm going to say that she did buy into a fantasy that was sold to her, but that's not the character's fault. It's just that we as the audience know that won't last forever. It can't. And especially whenever the character finally starts acting the way that we know those people to be.
Yeah, well, especially since he didn't really know what he was doing for a job, and she would ask questions like, "So what do you do?"
And he's like, "Nothing."
And nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, my dad owns money." Owns money, but like
I own bank.
I own cash.
But no, I'm not going to say that I disagree with your reading on that, because
you can.
No, but there's
Go for it.
No, there's things I agree with you on. It's just that's what I was trying to tell you before we started. I was like, let me just talk. Like, let me just say that I think that she likes him, but she mistakes what she likes about him. And
okay, yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I think it's just before he gets caught, before he gets caught, and like parents are coming by, and then he freaks out and runs away.
Yeah. No, did you like so going into the middle portion, I gotta say, I gotta address these guys, because there's a few of the best people in the movie.
Yes.
It's these, like, people call them goons, and I know that means something else now, but...
Dude, that's so funny. I forgot. Okay, continue.
And
goons.
But they're incredible. I think that they bring a real liveliness to this movie whenever they're finally introduced, because they're really likable, but they're also bumbling. And
I think one of my favorite things though in any type of movie is when they casually drop certain lines that add so much depth to these other like side characters. Because my favorite line is like, "It's sometimes it feels like you like Ivan more than your own brother."
Dude, and that's just in the background, yeah.
And I'm like, that's so funny.
Yeah.
Because his brother's literally struggling. He possibly had a concussion after Anora like kicked him in the face.
We used to argue a lot about a throw up joke being funny, and in this one, there's one I busted out laughing so hard because he keeps saying, "I have a concussion. I need to go to the hospital." And then when it finally happens, they're like, "Of course, you guys just ignored him the entire movie."
It was so funny. I can't.
There's a line reading in this movie. Yeah. I laughed so hard because it's barely audible, but it's when that guy ditches his baptism and he goes, he reads his phone, he goes, no.
He leaves halfway through.
Yeah. It's like this movie can navigate tone really well. Mm-hmm. It can be so serious, and then it can be really, really funny. Yeah. And then it can go back to being really serious. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you, like, out of those guys, do you remember anything, like, did you have a favorite thing about them as well? Because your favorite part was the middle portion, right?
Yes. So I would say my favorite part was, I guess, the I don't know if like the bodyguard that has been watching over Ivan since he was 6 years old. That guy. Yeah. My favorite part was whenever he would just go up to everyone and just showcase like a photo.
Showing this douchey photo of this guy because if
he's like, "Do you know him? Have you seen him? Have you seen Ivan over and over?" And then whenever he's at the restaurant, that was my favorite part. It's like, "You guys don't work. You have no work, like no work ethics. No, all you guys is Instagram and TikTok."
Oh, and then he says, "All you guys care about is just getting a cool pair of shoes." And I was like, "Yeah."
That was my favorite scene.
No, that's why I know that. I don't know who Sean Baker hangs around, but I just know that like he definitely pays attention to different people in different walks of life. Yeah. Because everyone feels like, not that they don't like each other, but you know in the middle that they all have to put up with each other, and they feel really tangible. Like, I don't know if this is a situation that could happen necessarily. You when somebody said in the background, they said, "This sounds like a tabloid story." It's like, it does. Like, genuinely, some Russian boy in protest in America gets mad at his dad and then goes and marries someone that's a sex worker. And there's a recurring bit with that where they keep calling her like either a hooker or a prostitute, and she gets offended every time. Yes. And it actually kind of puts you into the perspective of, because, you know, she shouts a lot. And, but there's a moment where somebody calls her that, and she like, you can tell that it genuinely affects her, which I was really interesting, because I'm going to ask you, how did it remind you of Uncut Gems?
It reminded me of Uncut Gems because of tension. Yeah. And it just built up tension and not knowing where it was going to go next. Because genuinely, every time a line was said from these actors, and like from Anora as well, it just felt very authentic.
I think it's some of the best written dialogue I've like seen in a really long time.
It's been and I think that's just like how they continue on with just not knowing, and like, I guess like just not knowing what was gonna happen next, thinking like, well, nothing could get worse after this. Yeah. Right? And you just think like, okay, Anora's just gonna be fine, just getting her cut and leave, and that's it. Yeah. But even when she does get her cut, it's just not what she expected nor what she wanted.
It's because I don't know if we have different readings of the ending, which I like to save after our cons, and then we get into what we think that all means. But I think that the whole middle ideal, you end up spending so much time with these people that know this character already, so you end up actually getting to know Ivan really when he's gone, which I think is a really smart creative choice. Yes. And you said you wanted to bring up that it was shot in New York, and I want to address that as well. It looks amazing. They're really able to capture these environments so well. New York has always been this like kind of dusty, grungy place, but there's also kind of an allure about it. I don't know if did you like how this movie looked as well? Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we only know that it was shot on 35 millimeter because they told us.
Yeah, Sean Baker was like, "This is shot on film."
I mean, it does look like it. It's always that kind of grain adds a little bit of extra depth. There's something I want to say about the mansion that I noticed, as well as her living environments at the beginning, is You can tell that. I mean, it's supposed to be a visual exchange of ideas, right? Where you know that the environment she's living in is not the best. We don't know who those people are that she lives with either.
I think it was one of her. I think it's her sister.
They imply something like that, right? And
yeah.
they said that she'll probably steal you from him. But I thought she said that she was in Miami or something. But
no, that's
just
parents.
her parents, right?
Yeah.
And
or her mom,
or just her mom, because she said her man, which is like another clever detail, by the way, that the dad's out of the picture without actually ever saying anything.
Yes.
I just think it's just one of those things where, like you said, so many different background details can be said, and you can piece together these people's lives through just things that are said or actions that they do. And another one is how that he knew how to tie the cord around her in the movie, just randomly, just like a authentic detail, because you know that this is their life, that they're stuck doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
But the beginning with the train in the background and the tracks, and you can just hear it whenever she's sleeping as well. And then they move into the mansion, which is, really nice and of course beautiful looking. It's that whole distinguished rich person aesthetic, and you can overlook the city as well, and then just the environment is completely changed as well. And I don't know if you got anything out of some of the visual storytelling here as well.
No, not really.
No, because I want to say that there's two recurring bits. I know we differ on sex scenes, right?
Okay. I get what you mean.
And I want to bring up something that I noticed this movie did. And did you feel like they were overkill, or were you just like whatever about them in this?
I think they made a point in the story.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was an overkill when it comes to the sex scenes here.
Yeah.
And that is because like she is a sex worker.
Yeah.
But I think the way they utilized it in this movie, they did a good job. Just because it showcased like I would say, I guess, like the human connection that you said. Yeah. Because I don't know, I don't want to like explain the scenes itself, but
tell me the positions.
I'm like, oh no, I'm okay. But eventually you can tell though when like it genuinely felt like, oh, she's starting to like really like him. Yeah. Or like to the point of like loving him. Yeah. So.
Well, she's starting. I feel like I don't want to say mistakes this, but she's so used to the exchange of this as the connection that, and we'll get into the ending in a little bit, but whenever she's alone in the third act or whatever you want to call it, a lot of the visual moments, like the sex scenes that they show, the areas they were in, are repeated again, but then she's by herself. And then there's this one, it was framed the exact same way. There's this one where they're like in the shower, and then again, but she's alone and she's washing her hair, and it's towards the end of the movie, and it's supposed to be a sort of a visual framing of a callback to, it was like this just in our minds like a couple hours ago, but in the movie like a few weeks ago, and just this sort of slow breakdown a little bit of this character feeling lonely or alone, and I thought that was really smart. And another one that's repeated is whenever she's hanging out with all of his friends, they're walking through the Coney Island park or whatever, and then they repeat that again, but with the guys instead. I thought that was cool. I thought that was smart. But let's go ahead, and there's one more thing I want to touch on that we don't fully get into all the time, but I think is important for this movie. What do you think the point is? What do you think it's about?
Anora?
Yeah.
Oof.
You want to get back to it?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to it.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm trying to think like what...
Okay,
like the point of the movie?
The point of the movie and what you're supposed to take away from some of the characters here. Because I want to ask you what you think of Anora, Ivan...
Okay, because even with... I understand Anora, and then the guy the other goon... I'm blanking on his name in the movie.
The Gooning Squad? Yeah.
The guy with the blue eyes.
Igor,
yes. Igor and Anora. Because I feel like with them two, I really got the point of like what they're supposed to be. Yeah. But basically, to me, Nora, like she wanted to get to a certain point in her life. Yeah. And she just tried to cheat
the system.
Or like cheat in life just to get there. And then realizing that you really couldn't do that. Yeah. And so she ended up back to where she started again. And and Igor was like the same way, but not in the sense of cheating, but just doing the things that he needed to do.
Yeah.
In order to, get through life as well.
Right.
And because like they casually mentioned things about Igor as well, but he never crossed a certain line that would be detrimental to his character.
Right.
In his way, like character not as in like the actor that he's playing as, but the character as in just himself.
Like how he presents himself
in the movie. Yes.
And a lot of this, I agree with you. I think that the entire point of Anora is to, and honestly for Ivan as well, but they're not two sides of the same coin.
No.
One has a lot more maturing to do than the other, but
because even Igor was like, or like Anora was like, why do you not like straight up asking him, why do you do these things?
Yeah.
But just trying to implement things like, well, you learned how to do this, you do this to me and else and that, and then he goes, well, like I live with my great grandma.
No, that's another one. Yeah. Where she's like, how do you even live there? And he's like, I mean, that's just my
yeah.
And I thought that was again very dialogue based storytelling.
Yes.
It's so smart because nobody's ever asking, what do you? I mean, she asks Ivan, but no one's ever asking like, why do you do this or anything like that. It's just people living their lives and they're stuck in this circumstance for however long they're stuck in there. And I want to say that I do think that this is again about human connection. It's about trying to empathize with people that are stuck in a situation that they may be in.
See it. I do see it as a Cinderella story. Yeah. But I don't see it with like Ivan. Just more so with Anora when it comes to the fantasy life that she wants. Yeah. Because that's why when I saw the ring. At the end, I thought it would symbolize the fantasy life of her, not Ivan.
I'm going to ask you what the ending you think meant in a second, but before we do that, let's go ahead. Do you have any negatives?
Yeah, your opinion.
My opinion. I think you love this too. What?
Oh yeah, my bad. I guess my opinion was maybe just the fact that the first half of the movie was kind of weak for me. Yeah. Just because I wish the relationship itself was a lot stronger. Or at least to me, like it showcased it a lot stronger. So in that way, whatever happens like throughout the second half, it's something for me to carry on with. Yeah. And I think that's it.
And it's funny because I agree with you, and then in the sense, and mine's a positive though. Oh. Because I think that relationship is intentionally like that. Yeah. And I bought into the idea that we're being sold a fantasy as well, and we already know as the audience it's not going to be perfect. Yeah. And
I guess I wanted to see like, oh, maybe if it was like maybe it's going to be. I think like the little hint or like that push. But I mean, it's just the way the director
because it's so much of like the partying and stuff, and we've seen movies where they tell the tales of excess, and we're just like, we know that people that prioritize that in their lives, it eventually hits everyone that it's like not gonna be like that forever. Yeah. And people, it's funny because I think we got to see this at the perfect point in our lives because we know people that think like that.
Yeah, they still do.
Yeah. Yeah. And that like, that's going to be, at the end of the day, the perfect lifestyle. Yeah. That you're going to live life partying all the time, and that you're going to be out with your friends, or you're going to be able to go to Vegas last second. Yeah. And so that was just a strength for me because I was like, I get it. I get the point that they're making, that there's an artificiality in the relationship that he's selling her. And it's why I found the third act kind of heartbreaking, actually, because that's when reality sets in. So
especially like when she like is hooking up with Igor.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and let's talk about the ending really quick. It ends very interestingly. It ends
very impactful,
very sad. I think. Yeah. What did you get out of it? What do you think it meant?
I mean, I think it's just at that moment where she genuinely started to feel everything that's been happening the past couple of like weeks or months or two with Ivan, and just let everything out, and like just finally beginning to feel what an actual relationship is. Yeah. Because everything with Igor, and I think a lot of it had to do with like body language in this movie too. Yeah. Especially at the very end. No, you can because the way that Igor was trying to pull her in, and she didn't want to. Yeah. It's just so much about where she is in life that she can't. It's hard for her to let anybody in.
Just because the dialogue's really clever here, right? She spent so much of the movie being like witty and coming like. she has a remark for everything
Yes.
that everyone says to her. And I took the ending as she thinks that like he gives the ring, and by the way, I had to look up how much 4 carats was. I got a range of answers, but
How much was it?
so many different things, but I'm just gonna assume that I'm gonna go with like the 35 to 60,000 thing that I saw, because I was like, I don't know how much a 4 carat ring costs.
I don't see any carats there.
Yeah, and then they kept saying 10,000. I was like, that dude has been blowing so much money. You could give that girl so much more.
Yeah.
I think that's why somebody to our left laughed whenever they said that.
Yeah.
Because of the point they kept on making about that.
Yeah.
And I think she's so used to exchange of service in her life that that's like the one way she felt like she wanted to reach back out. And then Igor, I think, genuinely liked her, not even in the sense of like, you know, wanting a relationship, but liked her as a person, because there's so much body language where you see him like smirking off to the side, or he even tries to come to her defense at one point where he was like, you should apologize to her. And people just like blow him off. And at the end of that, it's whenever she finally breaks down and he's trying to get her to kiss him, and that movie ends right there. Yeah. And that's like the impact of everything is so delayed for her. And it kind of makes you feel that way as well. Like I felt like once the movie was over, so much of it was so funny for so long, and then it really, really, like the circumstances that she's put in at the end of it hits you there and then leaves you like that when it's over, I think. Yeah. But overall,
I think it just reminded me, this whole movie just felt like a drug. Yeah. You know, you get hooked onto something real fast, and then the moment you actually let it go and like stop doing it, it just hits you out of nowhere.
The
like,
reality
it just stopped.
hits you. Yeah. And it wants to be fun for a long time, and it is. It really is.
A lot of funny moments. That's what.
Yeah.
I did not expect that.
They kept in the trailer. They sold it as a dramedy. I think it is.
Yeah. Well, I say a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, but the tagline keeps on saying a love story from Sean Baker.
See, and I didn't really. I got that maybe with a very little. Yeah. In the very beginning of the movie, of like a love story, I can see the Cinderella aspect. I think very, very little, like the glass slipper, in a way with the ring.
That makes sense.
I could see that happening, but like the reverse.
I do think that marketing's on purpose, though. I think that's intentionally supposed to be like, hey, wait a second.
That's not it.
But overall, Erwin, what'd you think?
I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too. What is your score?
4.5 out of 5.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna 5 out of 5.
What?
I thought it was incredible. This is gonna be pretty high on, like, we're getting towards the end of the year.
No, that's true.
It's gonna be up
B-.
C+, predictable. I saw it twice. I could guess everything the second time.
D-.
All right, we thought this movie was immaculate. Not the movie, but like really, really something special.
What's the next one we're reviewing?
Up next, we will have a review for Heretic.
Yo, let's go.
Yet another horror movie. There's been so many.
Dude, that's insane. But like,
they've all been fucking amazing.
That's awesome.
I cannot complain.
Honestly, I still think Late Night with the Devil will probably
is your favorite.
It's still up there really high. I'm gonna watch it one more time. But
I don't know if it's because I'm partial to, like, I don't know what to say. There's been a lot of great horror movies. I thought Terrifier was awesome, by the way, but like so many different things. Yeah. But, or what are they gonna do?
They're gonna like, comment, and subscribe.
Please do. We're gonna have a review for that, and then we'll have a couple of TV shows. What are they? We gotta finish them. Just keep an eye out for that. And
we'll keep you along.
And then we'll be waddling around.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you guys so much for listening and watching. What did you think of Anora? We want to know.
No, we don't. I don't want to know.
I want to know.
He wants to know.
Comment, please. We will see you next time.